Every day you hear it on the news. National debt is skyrocketing. Politicians argue, people protest, and headlines scream about billions of dollars being wasted. But here's the truth. Almost every country on Earth has debt. From India to Germany, from Switzerland to the United States, nobody is safe. Japan's debt is twice the size of its economy, and the U.S.? A mind-blowing $36 trillion. But what does this really mean? Why do countries borrow so much money? And is it always a bad thing? Let's break it down. National debt is just like personal debt, but on a massive scale. Imagine signing a loan agreement. Only this time, it's a whole country signing. Governments borrow money when they don't have enough to cover their expenses, whether it's for building roads, paying salaries, or investing in healthcare. In short, national debt is the total amount a government owes to lenders, both inside and outside the country. So, why do countries borrow money? There are 5 main reasons. First, budget deficits. When expenses are greater than income, borrowing fills the gap. Second, growth. Nations borrow to invest in highways, schools, hospitals, projects that create long-term benefits. Third, emergencies. During crises like COVID-19, governments need extra funds fast to buy masks, support hospitals, or provide relief to citizens. Fourth, paying old debt. Just like refinancing a loan, governments often borrow to repay older debts with new ones. And finally, controlling the economy. Central banks may use debt to fight inflation or stimulate growth. In short, borrowing isn't always about being broke. Sometimes it's about strategy. If countries borrow so much, who's lending them all this cash? The answer, many players. Ordinary people buy government bonds, safe investments backed by the state. Other countries like the US, China, and Japan lend to each other by purchasing debt. Global institutions such as the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, provide loans during financial trouble. And finally, central banks themselves can create money and lend it to their governments. So a nation's debt is spread across individuals, foreign governments, banks, and global institutions. Here's the big question. Is debt always bad? The answer is not necessarily. Good debt is used to build infrastructure, fund education, and improve lives, like modern train stations or new schools. But bad debt happens when borrowing leads to waste, corruption, or uncontrolled inflation. For example, when food prices skyrocket and people can't afford basics, debt becomes a burden. Sri Lanka's financial crisis is a recent reminder of what happens when debt spirals out of control. Credit ratings can drop from AAA to junk status, making future borrowing almost impossible. So debt can be both a tool and a trap. Is it even possible for a country to live without debt? The answer, almost never. A handful of places like Macau manage because of casino revenue and tourism. But most modern nations rely on borrowing to fund pensions, investments, and economic stability. Even if a government clears its debt, new emergencies, wars, or recessions usually push borrowing back up. In today's world, being completely debt-free is more fantasy than reality. So, is national debt a monster? Or is it a necessary tool? The truth lies in balance. When used wisely, debt builds schools, hospitals, and brighter futures. But when mismanaged, it sparks inflation, protests, and economic collapse. Almost every country carries this invisible burden on its shoulders. The question isn't whether debt exists, but how well leaders manage it. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And remember, the story of national debt isn't just about numbers. It's about people, their lives, and the future of nations.